Beavers genus Castor are large, semi-aquatic rodents of the northern hemisphere. There are two existing species, the North American beaver Castor canadensis and the Eurasian beaver C. fiber. Beavers are the second largest living rodents, after capybaras, weighing up to 50 kilograms 110 pounds. They have stout bodies with large heads, long chisel-like incisors, brown or gray fur, hand-like front feet, webbed back feet, and tails that are flat and scaly. The two species differ in skull and tail shape and fur color. Beavers can be found in a number of freshwater habitats, such as rivers, streams, lakes, and ponds. They are herbivorous, consuming tree bark, aquatic plants, grasses, and sedges. Beavers build dams and lodges using tree branches, vegetation, rocks, and mud. They chew down trees for building material. Dams restrict water flow, and lodges serve as shelters. Their infrastructure creates wetlands used by many other species, and because of their effect on other organisms in the ecosystem, beavers are considered a keystone species. Adult males and females live in monogamous pairs with their offspring. After their first year, the young help their parents repair dams and lodges. Older siblings may also help raise newly born offspring. Beavers hold territories and mark them using scent mounds made of mud, debris, and castoreum, a liquid substance excreted through the beaver's urethra-based castor sacs. Historically, beavers have been hunted for their fur, meat, and castoreum. Castoreum has been used in medicine, perfume, and food flavoring. Beaver pelts have been a major driver of the fur trade. Before protections began in the 19th and early 20th centuries, overhunting had nearly exterminated both species. Their populations have the beaver symbolizes industriousness, especially in connection with construction. It is the national animal of Canada. Etymology: the English word beaver comes from the Old English word beaver, or before. It is connected to the German word bibber and the Dutch word beaver. The ultimate origin of the word is an Indo-European root for brown. To cognates of beaver is the source for several European place names, including those of Beverly, Beavs, Biberbach, Biebrich, Bibra, Bibern, Biberker, Bobbert, Bobbert, Bobberke, Buerholm, Burelven, and Burum. 3. The genus name Castor has its origin in the Greek word kappa y sigma tau omega rho castor and translates as beaver. 4. Taxonomy. Carl Linnaeus coined the genus name Castor in 1758-5 as well as the specific species epithet fiber for the Eurasian species. 6. German zoologist Heinrich Kull coined C. canadensis in 1820. 7. Many scientists considered both names synonymous for one same species. 8. 9. Until the 1970s, when chromosomal evidence became available confirming both as separate, where the Eurasian has 48 chromosomes, while the North American has 40. The beaver C. fiber. The Eurasian beaver is slightly longer and has a more lengthened skull, triangular nasal cavities as opposed to the square ones of the North American species, a lighter fur color, and a narrower tail. 11. Evolution: North American beaver on a river bank. North American beaver Castor canadensis. A Eurasian beaver gnawing on a branch. Eurasian beaver Castor fiber. Castoromorpha Castoroidea Castoridae. Agnatocastor coloradensis. Agnatocastor proteridens Anchitheriumes sp. Castorinae modern beavers. Castoroidinae Agnatocastor sp. Migmacastor procumbodens Paleocastorine Geomuidae. Heteromyidae kangaroo rats and allies. Geomuidae gophers. Phylogeny of extant and extinct relatives of modern beavers based on genetics and morphology. 1213. Beavers belong to the rodent suborder Castoromorpha, along with Heteromyidae kangaroo rats and kangaroo mice, and the gophers. Modern beavers are the only extant members of the family Castoridae. They originated in one genus in Castoroidinae. Diploids have been found near piles of chewed wood. 13. The diploids appears to have been an inferior woodcut. Researchers suggest that modern beavers and Castoroidinae shared a bark-eating common ancestor. Dam and lodge building likely developed from bark-eating and allowed beavers to survive in the harsh winters of the subarctic. There is no conclusive evidence for this behavior occurring in non-castor species. 17. The genus Castor likely originated in Eurasia. 18. The earliest fossil remains appear to be C. neglectus, found in Germany and dated 12 to 10 Mya. Ancestors 19. Of the North American beaver would have crossed the Bering Length Bridge around 7.5 Mya. 18. Castor may have competed with members of Castoroidinae, which led to niche differentiation. 20. The fossil species C. prefiber was likely an ancestor of the Eurasian beaver. 21. C. californicus from the early Pleistocene of North America was similar to but larger than the extant North American beaver. 22. Characteristics. See caption. Mounted North American beaver skeleton. Beavers are the second largest living rodents after capybaras. Females are almost identical externally. 23. Their bodies are streamlined like marine mammals, and their robust build allows them to pull heavy loads. Beavers molt every summer. 926. Beavers have large skulls with powerful chewing muscles. They have four chisel-shaped incisors that continue to grow throughout their lives. Beavers have one premolar and 3 molars on all 4 sides of the jaws, adding up to 20 teeth. The molars have meandering ridges for grinding woody material. 29. The eyes, ears, and nostrils are arranged so that they can remain above water while the rest of the body is submerged. The nostrils and ears have valves that close underwater, while nictitating membranes cover the eyes. To protect the larynx and trachea from water flow, the epiglottis is contained within the nasal cavity instead of the throat. In addition, the back of the tongue can rise and create a waterproof seal. A beaver's lips can close behind the incisors, preventing water from entering their mouths as they cut and bite onto things while submerged. 30-31. Illustration of a forefoot, a hindfoot showing webbing, and the tail of a beaver. The forefoot, hindfoot, and tail of a beaver, beaver tail and footprints on snow. The beaver's front feet are dexterous, allowing them to grasp and manipulate objects and food, as well as dig. The hind feet are larger and have webbing between the toes, and the second innermost toe has a double nail used for grooming. 31-30. To beavers can swim at 8 km per hour, 5.0 miles per hour. 25. Only their webbed hind feet are used to swim, while the front feet fold under the chest. 31. On the surface, the hind limbs thrust one after the other. While underwater, they move at the same time. 33. Beavers are awkward on land, but can move quickly when they feel threatened. They can carry objects while walking on their hind legs. 20-31. The beaver's distinctive tail has a conical, muscular, hairy base. The remaining 2/3 of the appendage is flat and scaly. The tail has evolved secondarily, as most mammals have lost this feature, and may reduce the area vulnerable to infection in dirty water. The beaver's intestine is 6 times longer than its body, and the cecum is double the volume of its stomach. 35 microorganisms in the cecum allow them to process around 30% of the cellulose they eat. 24. A beaver defecates in the water, leaving behind balls of sawdust. Female beavers have 4 mammary glands. These produce milk with 19% fat, a higher fat content than other rodents. Beaver's cerebellum is large, allowing the animal to move within a 3-dimensional space, such as underwater, similar to tree-climbing squirrels. The neocortex is devoted mainly to touch and hearing. Touch is more advanced in the lips and hands than the whiskers and tail. Vision in the beaver is relatively poor. The beaver eye cannot see as well underwater as an otter. Beavers have a good sense of smell, which they use for detecting land predators and for inspecting scent marks, food, and other individuals. 37. Beavers can hold their breath for as long as 15 minutes, but typically remain underwater for no more than 5 or 6 minutes. 38. Dives typically last less than 30 seconds and are usually no more than 1 meter 3 feet 3 in deep. 39. When diving, their heart rate decreases to 60 beats per minute, half its normal pace, and blood flow is directed more towards the brain. A beaver's body also has a high tolerance for carbon dioxide. When surface distribution and status, a beaver at the shores of a lake. North American beaver in Yellowstone National Park. The IUCN and Red List of Mammals lists both beaver species as least concern. 4041. The North American beaver is widespread throughout most of the United States and Canada and can be found in northern Mexico. The species was introduced to Finland in 1937 and then spread to northwestern Russia and to Tierra del Fuego, Patagonia, in 1946-40. As of 2019, the introduced population of North American beavers in Finland has been moving closer to the habitat of the Eurasian beaver 42. Historically, the North American beaver was trapped and nearly extirpated because its fur was highly sought after. Protections have allowed the beaver population on the continent to rebound to an estimated 6 to 12 million by the late 20th century. Still far lower than the originally estimated 60 to 400 million North American beavers before the fur trade. 43. The introduced population in Tierra del Fuego estimated at 35,000 to 50,000 individuals as of 2016. 40. The Eurasian beaver's range historically included much of Eurasia, but was decimated by hunting by the early 20th century. In Europe, beavers were reduced to fragmented populations, with combined population numbers being estimated at 1,200 individuals. Has since recolonized parts of its former range, aided by conservation policies and reintroductions. Beaver populations now range across Western, Central, and Eastern Europe, and Western Russia, and the Scandinavian Peninsula. 41. Beginning in 2009, beavers have been successfully reintroduced to parts of Great Britain. 44. In 2020, the total Eurasian beaver population in Europe was estimated at over 1 million. 45 small native populations are also present in Mongolia and northwestern China. Their numbers were estimated at 150 and 700, respectively, as of 2016. 41. Under New Zealand's Hazardous Substances and New Organisms Act 1996, beavers are classed as a prohibited new organism, preventing them from being introduced into the country. 46. Ecology. Duration 59 seconds. 0:59. Eurasian beavers swimming and foraging. Beavers live in freshwater ecosystems such as rivers, streams. Water is the most important component of beaver habitat. They swim and dive in it, and it provides them refuge from land predators. It also restricts access to their homes and allows them to move building objects more easily. Beavers prefer slower moving streams, typically with a gradient steepness of 1%, though they have been recorded using streams with gradients as high as 15%. Beavers are found in wider streams more often than in narrower ones. All American beavers prefer trees being 60 meters 200 feet or less from the water, but will roam several hundred meters to find more. Beavers have also been recorded in mountainous areas. Dispersing beavers will use certain habitats temporarily before finding their ideal home. These include small streams, temporary swamps, ditches, and backyards. Have increasingly settled at or near human-made environments, including agricultural areas, suburbs, golf courses, and shopping malls. 48. Beaver in water-eating lily pads. North American beaver eating lily pads. Beavers have an herbivorous and a generalist diet. During the spring and summer, they mainly feed on herbaceous plant material such as leaves, roots, herbs, ferns, grasses, sedges, water lily, water shields, rushes, and cattails. During the fall and winter, they eat more bark and cambium of woody plants. Tree and shrub species consumed include aspen, birch, oak, dogwood, willow, and alder. 949-50-24. There is some disagreement about why beavers select specific woody plants. Some research has shown that beavers more frequently select species which are more easily digested. 51. While others suggest beavers principally forage based on stem size. 52. Beavers may cache their food for the winter, piling wood in the deepest part of their pond where it cannot be reached by other browsers. This cache is known as a raft. When the top becomes frozen, it creates a cap. 20:9. The beaver accesses the raft by swimming under the ice. Many populations of Eurasian beaver do not make rafts, but forage on land during winter. 9. Beavers usually live up to 10 years. Felids, canids, and bears may prey upon them. Beavers are protected from predators when in their lodges and prefer to stay near water. Parasites of the beaver include the bacteria Francisella tularensis, which causes tularemia, the protozoan Giardia duodenalis, which causes giardiasis beaver fever, and the beaver beetle and mites of the genus Schizocarpus 5354. They have all in Alberta, Canada. See Beaver Lodge. Further information: beaver dam, beaver chewing through a tree trunk. North American beaver chewing down a tree. Beavers need trees and shrubs to use as building material for dams, which restrict flowing water to create a pond for them to live in, and for lodges, which act as shelters and refuges from predators and the elements. Without such material, beavers dig burrows into a bank to live. Dam construction begins in late summer or early fall, and they repair them whenever needed. Beavers can cut down trees up to 15 centimeters, 5.9 in wide in less than 50 minutes. Thicker trees, at 25 centimeters, 9.8 in wide or more, may not fall for hours. 56 when chewing down a tree. Beavers switch between biting with the left and right side of the mouth. Tree branches are then cut and carried to their destination with the powerful jaw and neck muscles. Other building materials, like mud and rocks, are held by the forelimbs and tucked between the chin and chest. 57. Beavers start building dams when they hear running water, and the sound of a leak in a dam triggers them to repair it. 58. To build a dam, beavers stack up relatively long and thick logs between banks, and in heavy rocks keep them stable, and grass is packed between them. Beavers continue to pile on more material until the dam slopes in a direction facing upstream. Dams can range in height from 20 centimeters, 7.9, into 3 meters, 9.8 feet, and can stretch from 0.3 meters, 1 foot 0, into several hundred meters long. Beaver dams are more effective in trapping and slowly leaking water than man-made concrete dams. Lake-dwelling beavers do not need to build dams. 59. See caption: Open water beaver lodge in Canada. Beavers make two types of lodges: bank lodges and open water lodges. Bank lodges are burrows dug along the shore and covered in sticks. The more complex freestanding, open water lodges are built over a platform of piled up sticks. The lodge is mostly sealed with mud, except for a hole at the top which acts as an air vent. Both types are accessed by underwater entrances. 20 for 60. The above water space inside the lodge is known as the living chamber, and a dining area may exist close to the water entrance. 9. Families routinely clean out old plant material and bring in new material. 61. North American beavers build more open water lodges than Eurasian beavers. Beaver lodges built by new settlers are typically small and sloppy. A lodge sturdy enough to withstand the coming winter can be finished in just 2 nights. Both lodge types can be present at a beaver site. During the summer, beavers tend to use bank lodges to keep cool. They use open water lodges during the winter. The air lodge remains consistent in oxygen and carbon dioxide levels from season to season. 62. Beavers in some areas will dig canals connected to their ponds. The canals fill with groundwater and give beavers access and easier transport of resources, as well as allow them to escape predators. These canals can stretch up to 1 meter 3 feet 3 in wide, 0.5 meters 1 foot 8 in deep, and over 0.5 kilometers 0. It has been hypothesized that beavers' canals are not only transportation routes, but an extension of their central place around the lodge and or food cache. 50-63. As they drag wood across the land, beavers leave behind trails or slides, which they reuse when moving new material. 24. The beaver works as an ecosystem engineer and keystone species, as its activities can have a great impact on the landscape and biodiversity of an area. A study, beavers were associated with large increases in open water areas. It can affect the temperature of the water. In northern latitudes, ice thaws earlier in the warmer beaver-dammed waters. 70 beavers may contribute to climate change. In Arctic areas, the floods they create can cause permafrost to thaw, releasing methane into the atmosphere. 71-72. as wetlands are formed and riparian habitats are enlarged. Aquatic plants colonize the newly available watery habitat. 60 for 1 study in the Adirondacks found that beaver engineering lead to an increase of more than 33% in herbaceous plant diversity along the water's edge. 73 Another study in semi-arid eastern Oregon found that the width of riparian vegetation on stream banks increased several-fold as beaver dams watered previously dry terraces adjacent to the stream. 70 for riparian ecosystems in arid areas appear to sustain more plant life when beaver dams are present. 75 beaver ponds act as a refuge for riverbank plants during wildfires and provide them with enough moisture to resist such fires. 76 introduced beavers at Tierra del Fuego have been responsible for destroying. Unlike trees in North America, many trees in South America cannot grow back after being cut down. 77-78. Salmon anchor hinges nurker jumping a beaver dam. Beaver activity impacts communities of aquatic invertebrates. Damming typically leads to an increase of slow or motionless water species, oligochaetes, snails, and mussels. This is to the detriment of rapid water species like black flies, stoneflies, and net-spinning caddisflies. 60 for 79-80. Beaver floodings create more dead trees, providing more habitat for terrestrial invertebrates like Drosophila flies and bark beetles, which live and breed in dead wood. 60 for 81-82. The presence of beavers can increase wild salmon and trout populations and the average size of these fishes. These species use beaver habitats for spawning, overwintering, feeding, and as havens from changes in water flow. The positive effects of beaver dams on fish appear to outweigh the negative effects, such as blocking of migration. 83 beaver ponds have been shown to be beneficial to frog populations by protecting areas for larvae to mature in warm water. 80 for the stable waters of beaver ponds also provide ideal habitat for freshwater turtles. 85. Beavers help waterfowl by creating increased areas of water. The widening of the riparian zone associated with beaver dams has been shown to increase the abundance and diversity of birds favoring the water's edge, an impact that may be especially important in semi-arid climates. 86 fish-eating birds use beaver ponds for foraging, and in some areas, certain species appear more frequently at sites where beavers were active than at sites with no beaver activity. 60 for 87-88. In a study of Wyoming streams and rivers, watercourses with beavers had 75 times as many ducks as those without. 89 as trees are drowned by rising. They become an ideal habitat for woodpeckers, which carve cavities that may be later used by other bird species. 60 for 87. Beaver-caused ice thawing in northern latitudes allows Canada geese to nest earlier. 70. Other semi-aquatic mammals, such as water voles, muskrats, minks, and otters, will shelter in beaver lodges. 64. Beaver modifications to streams in Poland create habitats favorable to bat species that forage at the water surface and prefer moderate vegetation clutter. 90. Large herbivores, such as some deer species, benefit from beaver activity as they can access vegetation from fallen trees and ponds. 64. Behavior. North American beaver family, with the center pair grooming one another. Eurasian beaver parent and kit. Beavers are mainly nocturnal and crepuscular and spend the daytime in their shelters. In northern latitudes, beaver activity is decoupled from the 24-hour cycle during the winter and may last as long as 29 hours. They do not hibernate during winter and spend much of their time in their lodges. 920 for 91. Family life. The core of beaver's social organization is the family, which is composed of an adult male and an adult female in a monogamous pair, and their offspring loses its partner will wait for another one to come by. Estrus cycles begin in late December and peak in mid-January. Females may have to 2 for estrus cycles per season, each lasting 12 to 24 hours. The pair typically mate in the water and to a lesser extent in the lodge, for half a minute to 3 minutes. 93. Up to 4 young or kids are born in spring and summer after a 3 or 4 month gestation. 3190 for newborn. Beavers are precocial with a full fur coat and can open their eyes within days of birth. 20 often travel less than 5 kilometers, 3.1 miles, but long-distance dispersals are not uncommon when previous colonizers have already exploited local resources. Beavers are able to travel greater distances when free-flowing water is available. Individuals have not yet learned the proper use of a tail slap, and hence are normally ignored. 107 Eurasian beavers have been recorded using a territorial stick display, which involves individuals holding up a stick and bouncing in shallow water. Europeans have traditionally thought of beavers as fantastical animals due to their amphibious nature. They depicted them with exaggerated tusk-like teeth, dog or pig-like bodies, fish tails, and visible testicles. However, the beaver's status as a rodent has made it controversial, and it was not chosen to be on the arms of Canada in 1921. 141. The beaver has commonly been used to represent Canada in political cartoons, typically to signify as a friendly but relatively weak nation. 136. In the United States, the beaver is the state animal of New York and Oregon. 142. It is also featured on the coat of arms of the London School of Economics.